Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds Podcast. And today we get to introduce you to the healing couple, Dr. Cory and Jess. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having us.
These two are, I'm going to say, your leaders in the space of breathwork at this point in time. You have worked with hundreds of individuals on a breathwork journey. You have your own teacher training, and you teach hundreds of individuals, if not more, on how to facilitate breathwork. And truly, even before we actually met and we got connected, you were someone who was on the forefront of my radar. And so when we actually got to connect and meet, it was really special for me and I loved it. And for those that are listening, Dr. Cory and Jess are going to be speaking at the summit because you've all heard me talk about the power of breathwork for myself on my healing journey. We talk about breathwork and how we integrate it into our client treatments as a tool to help with nervous system regulation and settling the nervous system, both as a home program and in every single individual treatment session with our clients. It is a foundational piece of what we do. And so I'm so excited that you guys are going to bring to the summit not only, yes, breathwork is amazing, but you're going to actually explain in depth why and how it truly works. Because I think, at least I would say, everywhere I turn right now, someone's talking about breathwork. Right. And there's different styles and types. And it can, for someone who doesn't understand, it can get pretty confusing on like, well, and so we're going to dive into this question of like, is it safe? What can I do? What's the difference between these types? Like there's so much happening out there right now that sometimes it's hard to navigate. So I think we'll dive into that a bit on this podcast as well. But I would love to start with actually both of you just introducing yourselves to this audience more and sharing a bit about who you are and what has brought you to this place of the healing couple and your program and what you do in this space of breathwork.
Oh gosh, yeah. Big question. I'll try to break it down into two stories. The first story is, yes, I'm a naturopathic physician by trade. At the time, I was actually, before we met, I had a thriving orthopedic practice where I was doing regenerative joint injections, PRP, stem cells, a lot of prolotherapy. So like, it's just old school injections. It's a way to avoid drugs and surgery when it comes to your joints and musculoskeletal type of conditions. And so I had like worked hard with my mentor, doing like late night shifts, kind of taking over his office, then built up to my own practice. And then we had the opportunity to do this really amazing build out. We had like a 2,000 square foot center. We had me and 3 other business partners. We had 12 different employees. It was like what I thought was my dream.
Yeah.
All of my money into it. I poured all my time. I got my dad to come down and we ground down the concrete floors. Like I'm talking, literally built this thing from the ground up. And so we decided just off chance, we're like, hey, I think it was like January, right? It was like January 17th. Yeah. Of 2016. I'm not the greatest with dates. So
Jess has got your back. Don't worry.
Yeah. Right. And so we decided to do this grand opening and didn't think much of it. Well, 200 people showed up. And then the mayor of Scottsdale showed up. It was in Arizona.
Oh my goodness.
And then the camera crew showed up and I was like, what the heck is going on? And so, it was like, I thought my moment. I had the white coat, the stethoscope. Yep. We were kind of seeing each other at the time. So Jessica came from San Diego to Arizona. And you can imagine it's just this big kind of spectacle.
Yeah.
And the mayor busts out the dorky big golden scissors with the red ribbon. And I'm like, what is my life? Right?
This is so many people's dream. Like this, what you're describing, like this is a dream for so many people.
Dream. And I kid you not, as crazy as it sounds, he goes to cut the red ribbon with the golden dorky scissors. And I had this moment where time started to slow down. And then I had this overwhelming sensation of, shit, I'm living someone else's life. This isn't it. It was so wild because you're right. This is someone else's dream. This is not my dream. This is someone else's dream. And I'm literally having that epiphany at the peak moment of that experience. And so, you know how life, Natasha, has this funny kind of thing where you realize something, you're like, this isn't for me. Clearly I made these decisions. And I made a commitment to myself in that moment. Like, look, I'm clearly way far away from where I want to be. Mm-hmm. Even though it looks amazing, I'm going to start making some opposite decisions. Not just different, but like opposite decisions. And you know that funny thing where like the universe kind of tricks you or says, okay, that's what you want. All right, we're going to hit you over the head. with a spiritual 2x4. We're going to like test you on this.
We're going to make sure this is what you want and are committed to.
Yeah.
Right.
But like I said, we were kind of seeing each other, and we had to, because of crazy circumstances. There was like a football game, there was a car show, there's all this stuff. So I couldn't even drive home from the clinic. So we had to rent an Airbnb. So we went to this Airbnb afterwards. Kid you not, fast forward, sitting at the end of this bed, and me and this person that we kind of are seeing each other, not even really dating yet, we get into a full out fight. And I couldn't even tell you what it's about. Oh, shit. So this is the test, clearly. And old Cory would definitely, I know what old Cory would have said, I don't have time for this. I'm a doctor. Like, forget this. I'll find somebody else, or I'll move on. I don't need this kind of conflict in my life. And then I remembered that moment that I had
decision you made to yourself.
Yeah. And I took a risk. I took a huge risk. And I looked at her mid-fight and go, hey, do you want to be my girlfriend? You should have seen the look on her face.
Just a sign that probably like, what is just happening right now?
She was like, you're crazier than this argument right now.
Oh my goodness.
That is literally how our relationship started. But fast forward a few years, I ended up selling the practice, selling my shares to it, moving out to San Diego, starting up a practice in La Jolla. And me and Jessica just had a lot of experience with other modalities, other healing modalities, self-development workshops. And we'd have all these late night conversations. And we really like came together and said, you know what? We got to start sharing some of this work. And so we started doing some workshops.
Yeah. So we led our first workshop. And just right before that, I was getting really deep into breathwork. I've been practicing since 2011. I got introduced to breathwork in college when at the time I was super stressed, super anxious, ended up getting diagnosed with epilepsy. I started having grand mal seizures due to high stress, sleep deprivation. And practices like meditation, breathwork, yoga were really supportive in my healing journey on a physical level.
And so Jess, this was in 2011, you said?
That was in 2011 when I got introduced to breathwork, and I had got diagnosed with epilepsy about a year and a half prior to that.
Okay. Which is at this time, which I love this because it's also at this time where that was not mainstream in any way, shape, or form.
It wasn't. And mind you, I was at the University of Wisconsin. You know, being in the Midwest, it definitely was not talked about. I wasn't hanging out in California, right? And so, it was very uncommon, but a couple of my friends were starting to get into it, and they're like, I think this would be really good for you, because they could see how stressed out I was. But I thought that was normal. Like, that was my baseline. Like, I was just kind of always anxious. And I'm like, I guess it's just how you feel when you are going for success, right? But come to find out, after experiencing breathwork, I was like, I didn't realize how good I could feel. I love that. And I felt the difference. And so I was hooked. And so fast forward, when I was doing my yoga teacher training back in 2016, I was going much deeper into how breathwork works, why it works, and really sinking my teeth into it, because it was the most transformational tool out of anything that I had experienced. And I was like, there's something here, and I want to bring this to the world. And so that's when I did teacher trainings. And I told Cory about these journeys that I was experiencing. And he was like, I'm going to dive right in with you and train with you. Like, I want to experience this for myself too, because I would share with him the experiences that I had with conscious connected breathing. And we can definitely get into more like the nuances of all these different types of breath work, because like you said, it's become a very popular term. And so he was like, wait, you're turning into an eagle and you're seeing all these crazy visions and you're flying.
I can relate to that.
Right. Yeah. And, so we're talking, like, at the time we're doing long distance, we're talking on the phone. I'm sharing with him my experience. He's just like, are you sure it was just breathing? Like,
this is amazing.
And I was like, no, I swear.
Cory's like very science brain is just like, what the hell is happening right now?
Exactly.
I'm like, did he you something?
Right.
Was there
like, are you on something I don't know about?
Yeah. And you said, you're like, this sound, what you're describing to me sounds like my plant medicine journeys in the Amazon. And I'm like, I swear to you, it was just breath. So he was like, I'm really curious about this. And so after we did a couple different trainings, you really dug deep into the science, because that was the missing component from a lot of certification programs. They didn't touch on the science. They're just like, 2-day training. Here's how to kind of hold space, practice a little bit, and like off you go. And it's like, wait a minute, there's like so much more here. And so that's why we felt really called. And a lot of people were asking us after we were leading, we did our first workshop. It was sold out. I looked at Cory and I said, we have to keep doing this. I don't know where this is going to lead, but we have to keep doing this. And eventually on June 1st of 2020, he stepped away from private practice. And this is what we do full time.
Of all the years.
Yeah. All the years. Right. And then a number of people like coming to our events, our retreats, and they're just like, I want to learn from you. I want to train with you. And it just got to a point where we decided to bring the science and the energetic and the spirituality and the business of breathwork all together into a teacher training to really set people up for success. And now fast forward, here we are today, almost 100 facilitators across the globe and counting.
I think that's why I'm so drawn to you guys too, partly because you do meld. I always say I'm a blend of the science and the spirit. And that is exactly what you two do as well, because in the world that I'm in, which you well know our program is to treat clinicians for concussion and to help you with concussion recover, especially those individuals on a persistent concussion journey, it can't just be the science. Like there's so much more that comes into that. And so when you get to meet amazing humans like yourself who also blend the science with the spirit, with the energetics, and truly see that it's this holistic mind, body, soul connection in healing, that it just makes you want to connect more and do the things and support as much as you can. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I love hearing people's stories. I was talking to someone recently and I was like, I'm really terrible at remembering names, like horrible at remembering names. I'm so at remembering faces, but I will remember stories. And so I'm never going to forget your guys' story now. And I love it. So the healing couple, that came to life officially when?
Oh, that's a great question.
And how did you decide on that name?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. So
we haven't been asked this question in like a long time. Yeah.
I would say it was the healing couple officially in about 2018 going into 2019.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
But we started in 2017, right? With starting to host workshops and all of that. We first were the 2.0 experience. We thought it was really clever because we were helping people level up.
I hear you say that. I'm gonna...
Yeah, you're like instant like, oh my God, right? But we thought it was really clever at the time because we're really about helping people level up in their life, right? People who have really big dreams, really big visions, getting the fuck out of their own way. Sorry if I can't swear on this, but
you're good.
Get out of their own way and really level up also in their business as well. And so we thought 2.0 level up, and then also O2, oxygen, breath work, it was super clever, but people didn't really understand it. So then we called ourselves the abundant couple. That was the next name. We didn't feel very abundant. And in fact, around that time, quite honestly, we were sleeping in our car just to make ends meet. We were renting out our beach bungalow because we couldn't even afford rent. But we knew that we were doing that and making a lot of sacrifice at the time because we had that really big vision. And we knew we were meant to help a lot of people. And it's really emotional to share that. And for a long time, we didn't share that part of our journey because it was really challenging. We're like, we want to help people, but yet we're in this situation, right? And a lot of people didn't realize that. But now, thankfully, fast forward, now we're running a multiple 6-figure business on the way to 7 figures. And, I'm so glad that we stayed the course, even when it was really freaking hard.
And thank you for sharing that, Jess, because I do think that piece is going to hit a lot of people's hearts that are on and listening to this. When you look at the individuals that listen to this podcast, we have individuals on a PCS journey whose lives have been 100% turned upside down. Some of them are barely making ends meet. Some of them feel like they've hit rock bottom, they've lost who their identity is, but they still have that belief in themselves that this is not their life, this is not how they're supposed to be, and they will get better. Yep. And so hearing your story and speaking, although I'm just hearing where you were, but that belief in yourself, coming back to that belief in your vision and that belief in your ability to do that and your belief and your courage to reach out to people and to take the steps, that is going to speak to so many people listening to I get close to tears hearing that. That's going to speak to so many people listening to this.
Yeah. I'm so glad. The belief really was everything. I'll never forget There was one night where we were parked on this street, like illegally in San Diego, just where we could sleep for the night. And somebody, walked up because they could tell, okay, this car doesn't belong here in this neighborhood. So they're calling it in. And I, just so ashamed and so embarrassed. I got into the passenger seat. Cory gets into the driver's seat, and we had to drive and try to find somewhere else to sleep. And I'll never forget Cory turning to me and saying, babe, we are never going to be in this situation again. Like, I will not stand for it. I will not allow it. Like, we got this. And we created a vision statement, and we looked at that vision statement and we recited it every freaking day. And so just getting back to the belief, like that was at the core of it. If we didn't have that, I mean, we wouldn't be here today. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say on that. I feel like there was something coming through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, where does the breath tie into this too? Is just like, breath is free, right? Doesn't cost you anything but your time, your energy, and your effort. And so no matter where you are along your healing journey, even if you don't believe in this moment, the cool thing is that breathwork has this incredible ability to shift and change your emotions, and we can talk about that. And if you can breathe consistently in a consistent pattern, you can actually determine your emotional state. You can create what I like to call as an introspective feeling. You can actually focus on what you are feeling inside, irrespective of your external environment. And that's what it was like for me and Jessica. Yeah, the bank account wasn't great. Yeah, business connections maybe not as great. Like, all these things like could definitely be a lot better, but we focus so clearly on the vision statement and then really being consistent with our breath practice. And that was a huge part of getting us through that rocky period, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it and not say I'm a guru. Like, breath work isn't necessarily going to change your outer environment. You're still going to have to ride the ride, but it's how you ride the ride that makes the difference. That's what I've really realized. And in one of our trainings, we actually talk about this. I have this amazing picture. These two women, I need to figure out if they've been in a relationship or not. It's so hard to tell. But these two younger women, and they're on a roller coaster. It's a legit picture. They're on a roller coaster. And when the roller coaster goes all the way up to the top, right? Like, that big moment, you're not sure how you're going to handle it, and you're not sure how it's going to go. And you're just riding that damn thing. You hope you're locked in, right? And so there's these two women, and they're right at the peak of the top of the roller coaster, about to go down. And there's this picture that got taken of both of them. And we always talk about this. I never forget it. And these two women, same ride, completely different experience of that ride. One woman on the right-hand side is like, hand up, like, woo, I'm ready for this. Let's go. And then she's holding her partner, her friend's hand, same age, a lot of same characteristics. And this girl is cowering, like petrified, like, anything I can do to get this ride to stop, cease, and desist, right? And so I think really that picture says a lot about human beings, but it also says a lot about your nervous system. Yes. And two very similar people, same quote unquote ride, totally different experience of it. And so, like, kind of what you were getting at with the audience and some of the people and what they've been through with their concussion journey, and just realizing that, like, breath is in the here now. Breath is free. And if you learn how to master your breath through either breath control or breath practices, you're really going to start to shape and shift how your nervous system experiences the ride that it's currently on. And that's powerful.
I could just stop here and be like, okay, I'm just going to walk away now. I love it. Like, that is, yes. And that exact same scenario, the common question I get is, you could have two people, same age, same demographic, same everything, get hit the same way. One person develops an acute concussion, you resolve within 3 weeks. The other person goes on to develop persistent symptoms. Why? It's who you bring into the incident and the accumulation of the effects of life that make the difference.
100%.
For sure. Oh, we can keep going with this forever, but I'm going to go into breath is free, which I love. But there's so much out there right now that people are like, this does wonders and it works. Trust me. So I do want to tip into just a little bit of the science, because I know you guys are going to go deeper into this in your presentation for the summit. Why and how, how does breath work influence and support our nervous system, like you've talked about?
Yeah. So, like, really just getting down to the basics. Breath is inspiration and expiration. It's inhales and it's exhales. That's what it is, right? And so anatomically, we learn maybe in 8th grade middle school in biology class that like you breathe in oxygen and you breathe out CO2. Absolutely correct on all accounts. And there's a lot of other things that can be impacted by your breath. Number one is the nervous system. And I'm actually going to talk about something that maybe a lot of people, even in the nervous system world, don't really realize, is that our diaphragm is what controls a majority of our breath. And what your diaphragm is, imagine just like a red tent muscle that sits underneath your lungs. And when it contracts, your lungs fill with air. And when it relaxes, your lungs are able to expire or exhale. The thing is that the diaphragm has, I think, depending on the size of a human being, I'm a big guy. I'm like 220 pounds, 6'5". Jessica's like half my size. So depending on your size, there's anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 or 6,000 nerves that are in your diaphragm that are associated with sending signals from the diaphragm through what's called our vagus nerve up to deep parts within our limbic brain. I'll say that again. There's just a lot of nerves, specific types of nerves that send signals from the diaphragm up to our brain. And so for most people that aren't fully accessing the ability of your diaphragm to contract and relax, you're really negating a lot of your ability to not only adapt to stress, but to just regulate your nervous system. Why? Because most of us breathing up in our chest. We're up here, baby. And we're breathing either fast or shallow or short breaths. And if you're neglecting that part of your inspiration, your diaphragm, you're really neglecting a huge part of you being able to regulate your nervous system. Now, another aspect of like why breathwork works, right, is that our lung fields are designated to certain parts of our nervous system. What do I mean by that? Well, the biggest part of our nervous system is our autonomic nervous system, right? It's what everybody's talking about on Instagram. There's two aspects, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And what I'm going to say will maybe shock some people listening right now.
I'm already excited.
A lot of what's going on right now, and I think, just like anything, there's cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of emphasis right now on focusing on the parasympathetic nervous system to relax you via breath practices. I think that's wonderful. I do that all the time. I did that before the podcast. So there. But this is what I'm going to say that might rub some feathers, is that there's a huge neglect on the sympathetic side. Mm-hmm. And what I don't understand is neurologically, our sympathetic nervous system is technically way stronger than our parasympathetic nervous system. Like if there was ever a tug of war or like two monster trucks going in opposite directions, the sympathetic nervous system is going to win every single time. And so what I want to really point out is that unless you're activating certain parts of your sympathetic nervous system now I'm going to be very specific, in a very controlled setting, with highly skilled practitioners, you are probably going to be doing the loop-de-loop, or you're going to be plateauing in your body's ability to heal from concussions, from trauma, from emotional abuse, from physical manifestations, because our body is meant to be stressed. And right now, we are just chronically stressed. And so throwing gentle parasympathetic breathwork techniques at a big issue is kind of like David Goliath. I get it. In the story of David Goliath, he killed the giant. But in this case, I'm saying you're throwing little pebbles at a mountain. And so why me and Jessica try to focus more on the sympathetic part of the nervous system is because of this one single fact, is that if you can intentionally stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, the stronger principle within the nervous system, and I want to know if you agree, Natasha, is called homeostasis. It is king. It is king within the nervous system. And so if you can think about it, it's like a rubber band. If you can stretch the nervous system intentionally under conscious connected breathing, you're going to create what's called a homeostatic snapback effect. Meaning you go sympathetic intentionally, you're going to go deeper into your parasympathetic than you ever have before. So what me and Jessica are trying to do is essentially circumvent an ancient back door by accessing the sympathetic nervous system. Now, I think you can do parasympathetic breath practices, but it may take, 10, 15, 20 years to get the same results by just accessing the sympathetic nervous system in an intentional way to get to the parasympathetic nervous system. So I know I said a lot there. I'd love to hear
I love it.
Natasha, because these are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, no, and I think we've had this conversation before of, I went back and looked at my first reel that I posted about nervous system regulation. At this point, it would have been 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
But in the last, year, would you say, like everywhere you look, nervous system regulation, parasympathetic. And I always say people are bashing our poor sympathetic nervous system. Yeah. And like, this is a bad thing and it shouldn't exist. And it's like, well, no, absolutely not. We need it to survive and function, to thrive, to excel. Like, if you want to be able to not collapse and hit the ground when you go from lying to standing, you need a sympathetic nervous system.
Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Right?
Right there. Yeah.
And absolutely. Exactly. And I think this is what I love about what you said too. It's that controlled and intentional step into stress.
Yes.
And then allowing the moment for recovery.
Yep.
And I feel like you also know the hand is like, our world is living in chronic stress, which is so different than what we are talking about and what you're talking about with what the breathwork method you guys teach does. And so to extrapolate that to concussion rehab, it's the same thing. We very intentionally stress the system to then bring it back to recovery, because all we ever do is operate in this safe little bubble and do safe little things that never challenge us.
Yes.
We're never going to grow. We're never going to gain resiliency. Our capacity to handle stress is never going to change. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like we're living in a bit of this combination of fear avoidance as a society, mixed with just not a complete understanding of how we utilize the tools that are beautiful and accessible to us to retrain the nervous system.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yep. And what I'm hearing too is that there is some confusion around the nervous system talk of nervous system regulation. People are actually getting confused with nervous system relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because you're regulated.
Totally.
Regulate does not mean that you are calm and relaxed all the time.
I always feel like our nervous system needs to be dynamic. So the elastic example, beautiful. If we have a fixed, stuck, lethargic, can't shift to appropriate demands, that's not what we want. But our nervous system needs to be dynamic to be able to fluidly move in and out of the appropriate state and respond to the thing.
Right.
And that's regulation to me.
Yeah. And even look at like more of the spiritual aspect of this, right? Somebody that is stuck in a fixed point within their nervous system and any sort of trigger, microaggression, or psychological event, or even going from laying down to standing, like you were saying, what's going to happen? There's going to be a massive dysregulation of the nervous system. And how are you going to identify with that? You're going to identify as anything else other than my current norm is a threat to me, AKA I'm a victim.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a victim to my circumstance. I'm a victim to my external reality. And if you think about, because me and Jessica are big about archetypes of life, in order to switch from that victim identity, and I'm not saying people are consciously choosing that necessarily, but it's part of the nervous system, you have to intentionally stress yourself, intentionally challenge yourself so that you can go from being the victim to the victor. And that's what we've seen so many people go through our trainings, our programs, private clients, is like, there's just this moment. It's beautiful. There's like this moment. Maybe it's the first session, maybe it's the 5th, maybe it's the 15th, but like something's different about their experience with the breath. And then they pop up and they have this immediate download of wisdom about their life. So grateful for what has been the past and transitioned and complete with it, but so excited about the future. And building that archetype for yourself is so much more fun because it's like an adventure. It's like, how good can it get? Right? Hey, maybe I'm not 100% where I want to be right now. Maybe I'm at 60%, but like, man, so much better than 30. And I'm wondering what it's going to be looking like when I'm at 90%. And that's what we really want for people, is like flipping the script on that archetype of going from victim to victor.
Well, and I think too, Jess, you mentioned at the very beginning, is so many people don't even realize that this would be a tool that would serve them so amazingly, right? So we've talked about concussion in this world too, but When I dove into breathwork, it wasn't because I had a concussion, right? When you dove into breathwork, Cory, it wasn't because you had a concussion. Jess, you had identified with stress and medical issues, but this piece of so much of, I think, society today is just sitting at this higher threshold of chronic stress, and that piece that this is what's been ingrained into us for so many years, and that hustle culture, and that you need to work hard and you need to do the 12-hour days and you need to do all these pieces, that there's such I'm going to say every clinician that listens to this is why we have Rachel. So Rachel is, for those listening, the breath nurse who has done Cory and Jess's program. She is a facilitator in their program. She is also the breath coach for the Concussion Nerds program, because the Concussion Nerds program is clinicians who are trying to support other people on their healing journey with their own life, their own stressors, while trying to run a clinic or be a busy clinician. And in this exact conversation that we talked about is so many people don't realize the tools they need to support their own life and health, because all three of us know we can't have the impact we want to have if we don't take care of ourselves. We can't. It is not possible. And so in me recognizing that and wanting to put this in front of people that I know probably don't necessarily know the benefit of it, but I know it's going to help them. We have Rachel in the Breath Nerds as our Concussion Nerds breathwork coach. And she comes into the program once a month and leads us on a live journey together. And I always say a journey because breathwork it's a practice, yes, but it's also every session is a journey for me anyways. And then we have the library of her calls, because again, everybody needs this. Like, it's one of those things that if I could shout from the rooftop, everybody needs this. Yeah. So give us a quick snippet, maybe. And 30 minutes is out the window. It's okay. We knew this was going to happen. A quick snippet into the difference, because you guys teach the release method. That's your method.
The reset.
Yep. Sorry. Yes, reset. Yep. Give us a quick release as our somatic therapist who's leading a somatic experience for the summit. You should come join it. I'll give you the link. Give us an example of how reset is different than some of the other, and I say other because there's so many, the other experiences out there. And then I have one more question for you after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So here's the thing with breathwork, it's like an umbrella, right? The way I like to think about it, like the way we like to think about it. And it's just like yoga, where someone's like, I just came out of yoga class. It's like, that could mean you took a yin yoga class, and it's nice and calming. You did these deep stretches and you held them for 5 minutes each. Or you could have done like a hot yoga class, like a power yoga class, right? So it's like yoga means a lot of different things. Same thing with breathwork. There's many different techniques. And a lot of people, when they say, I've done breathwork before, most likely it's like they've done some deep breathing in a yoga class. And reset breathwork is very different. I'll get into how that is in a moment.
Yes, it is.
Right? There's practices that people are familiar with, like box breathing. So I'll just give you that as an example. What is box breathing? You breathe in for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 4, you exhale for 4, and you hold for 4. And so you're breathing almost like you imagine like in a box or in a square. And you do that for 10 to 20 rounds or until you feel more calm. It's a great practice. Actually, Navy SEALs use that in their training to be more calm and focused when they're on a mission. So it's massive benefit, right? But what we're talking about is more on the other side of the umbrella, which is conscious connected breathing. So there's practices like holotropic, transformational breath, rebirthing breath work, and then also our methodology, reset breath work. It uses conscious connected breathing. So you're actually lying down the entire time. And it's about a 30-minute, like you said, journey. There's these quicker practices, but then we've got these more long form practices. And you're breathing in almost a hypnotic pattern. It can also be called circular breathing. So we're constantly breathing through the mouth. So we're actually stretching. This goes back to the nervous system, sympathetic, because we're breathing through the mouth the entire time. And what's unique about reset breath work is that we also combine affirmations. We use visualizations. We use meditation practices at the beginning and at the end to really drop you in deeper into your body. We also curate the playlist so that It stretches your nervous system. So it builds up over time. So we bring you into a peak emotional state. So it really challenges you. You're breathing harder, you're breathing deeper, breathing faster through the journey. And then by the end, people come into that parasympathetic state. And so as you can tell me, as I'm describing it, it is a very different experience. And one of the main pieces of reset breathwork is it's designed to reset the nervous system, reset your mind, to get you out of the conscious mind, your thinking mind that's going on and on, into the subconscious. And that's where we can start to reset, rewrite, because all of our emotions, all of our thoughts, all of our experiences we ever had in our life are stored in our subconscious. But we can't do that with a quick 5-minute box breathing practice, right? So that's really, if we boil it down, is what it looks like.
For those listening, Cory and Jess know this already, but for those listening, this is how much I love this practice. Again, it's been huge in my own journey. And Rachel has always said to me, she gives me minimal details in visualizations because I'm such a visual person. And I will create the craziest thing sometimes. I create these, oh my God, I see this whole thing. And then there's times where I'll be like, I was already in a place, and then she feeds in the next piece, and we're totally in sync in the process as well. But I love this so much. And again, I'm the person who's like, anyone that I can introduce this to, like, you need to do this with me. Like, I'll do it together. Like, let's sign up for this thing together. I was dating someone once, and I was like, would you do a breathwork class with me? It's like, we just started talking. I think we'd maybe gone, we're not dating anymore. I think maybe I scared him. We went on one date, but like the next thing I was like, would you do a breathwork class with me? Is that something you would do? But 40th birthday, which was 2 years ago now. No, last year. Rachel came up to Nanaimo to visit. And I had 6 of my best girlfriends. And for my birthday, I love these women so much. And I wanted to thank them for the impact and the presence they have in my life. And my birthday was the perfect day to do that. And so I rented this space on the beach in a building. And I had this big stone fireplace, and Rach had flown up from Asheville. And so we put candles around the space, and I got all the girls these big fuzzy blankets and a fresh journal. And then for my birthday, the only thing they had to bring was yoga mats because I wasn't buying them yoga mats. And so they brought their yoga mats, and they walked into this space, and I had laid us out in this semicircle with blankets and journals and candles. And they were like, what is going on? And they let out their mats, and Rach led us through a reset breathwork journey for my 40th birthday. And then so much, like you've talked about, Jess, so much can come up in that time. Thoughts, clarity, like you were talking about earlier, Cory, but like you come out of a breathwork session, you're like, that's what I've been looking for, right? Like so much can happen that I'm the person, and because I always share my experiences, like I need to journal after, because I think too, the processing continues when you move into a different medium. Yeah. And so when we have that space to either debrief as a group, which we always do as well, but then to then take that and just write and not, again, try to stay out of your conscious, but just free flow. You get a deeper level most of the time from what started on the breathwork journey itself. Absolutely. I could talk about it forever. I love it.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I mean, you're clearing out the emotional static. So, the busyness, the repeated thoughts, the thoughts on repeat, as you know, it's like basic 101 with neuroscience is like our conscious mind is a record keeper of the past, and it's a really strong one. And so if you want to get to deeper parts of your nervous system, you need to figure out ways to dampen that, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. And so one of the modes that we think this beautiful process, and thank you for sharing that whole journey with Rachel. I love that. It's like a dream of ours, like have other facilitators doing this work. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. But what's happening possibly is because of the hypnotic repeated breath, and also there'll be arguments with this, but there's a temporary alkaline state that you're creating because you're breathing in so much oxygen. Mm-hmm. You're losing CO2 at the same time, so that oxygen is not getting to your cells. But like within your blood and your cerebral spinal fluid, you're getting a temporary increase in oxygen, which is called an alkaline state. And even a slight shift in that will dampen the neurocommunication that's happening within your neocortex. And it's called transient hypofrontality. Transient hypo. So transient's like temporary. Yeah. Hypo means down regulation. Frontality just means the frontal part of your neocortex. And so when you do that, the great thing about the brain is that it always conserves, right? And so if you're going to be downregulating one area of the brain, there'll be a corresponding upregulation of another part. And so the hope is if we can downregulate the frontal neocortex, you're going to be upregulating deep structures within your brain. So essentially turning down that static of the neocortex, which is the past and everything's the same and everything's up here and analytical, and getting down to the deeper emotional meaning and purpose for your life. And I think everybody deserves that. You got to work to get it, right?
Natasha? Oh, it is not. It is not. I had a girlfriend message me. She's like, because she did sign up for some one-on-one coaching with Rachel after 2. And she was like, I love my sessions with Rachel. She's like, but fuck, she's like, they're work. And I was like, yes, they're supposed to be. They're not lay on your back, close your eyes, and just breathe for an hour. You're putting in intentional, conscious activity to have an outcome. And I think the other piece I want to say too is with zero expectation of what that outcome should be.
That's right.
And just letting yourself be curious and be open to whatever flows out of the session together.
That's right. And it requires so much. It requires trust, it requires belief, it requires like grit and determination. There's so much that it gets to be extrapolated out of that experience from your nervous system. And I think one of the biggest ones, especially for people that have gone through trauma or have experienced like a really big emotional hang up in their life that they've never been able to really address or let go or see, is that these practices, these journeys are a direct contradiction to that trauma. It's a direct contradiction to that experience, because what your nervous system is going to do when you lay down and you breathe intensely on the floor is some of that stuff's going to come up to the surface, but it's not a re-experiencing, it's a reintegration, because your mind's going to be like, well, wait, this isn't happening again. We're just breathing on the floor. Okay, keep going. Oh, wait, that car crash that happened where now I have all these triggers and all the time, like I can feel them coming up in my body, but I'm not in a car. Oh, wait. And so that direct contradiction is a beautiful remedy. It's almost like in homeopathy, if you're familiar with it, where like treats like. It's almost like you're giving yourself a dose of that experience, but it's in a safe setting. It's in a controlled setting. And it's a setting where you have the gas pedal and the brake, which is your breath. And so when it's that direct contradiction, the mind, the body is going to have to create a new story around that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. Again, we could stay here for hours, I feel like. But last question. If someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I need to start putting breath work into my life, where do they start?
Well, first thing I would say is that something that you can do right here, right now, is breath awareness. Start becoming aware of how you breathe. Right. Start just noticing your breath. Maybe even put a reminder or 2 in your phone to pop up every single day to notice your breath and take 3 deep breaths. Because just that awareness is so powerful, because it's going to give you a lot of insight to what's going on inside, because our breath is directly linked to our mental, emotional, and physical state. So if you can just start to notice your breath, you're going to become more connected and more present to within, right? And a lot of people come to us like, I just want to be more present in my life, right? I just want to be more present in my relationships and with what I'm doing. I feel like I'm just constantly going to the next thing and just like in that hustle. It's like, if you want to be more present, your breath is always in the here and now. So start there. Notice how you're breathing when you're driving your car, when you're washing your dishes, when you're with your partner, when you're in an argument. How are you breathing? And then the second part is start to change your breath, right? Start to slow it, deepen it. So there's that. And that's a beautiful every single day practice. And that'll get you more connected and more present. And I think all of us want that. And then if you're ready for the deep dive, if you're like, hey, I'm ready to hit that next level, I'm ready to clear out some things that I've been holding on to. Maybe even I'm open to things that I didn't even realize I was holding on to. That's or true. Thought that I'd already dealt with. Right? We hear that a lot. Like, I thought I already dealt with that. Why is that popping up? And we've all got it. The way I see it is that we're all kind of going through life and we've all got like a rolly suitcase. We're all carrying a suitcase of our past, right? We all have our stuff. But it's like, what if you could lighten the load? Right? And what if you could lighten that load and empty those things out? And then you have this beautiful empty suitcase that you get to decide, what do I want to put in this? What do I want to pack it with? And where do I want to go? Right? So if you're ready for that, then you can experience Reset Breathwork with us every single month. We host virtual workshops So people join us from all over the world. So you can just go to our website, thehealingcouple.com/events, and check out whatever event we've got going on next. Every month is different. We got a different theme, different giveaways. So it's super fun too. I mean, the community is so amazing. And be happy to share with your community if you want to join one of our workshops. Your first one is on us. So you can use the code BREATHE100. Come join us for free. Check it out and experience it for yourself. It's so hard to put into words. I know we talked a lot about on this.
You have to experience it.
You got to experience it yourself.
Yeah.
Every time is different too. So come join us for that.
I love that. We're going to drop all those. We're going to drop your website, your link, the code, everything below this so everyone can grab it from the show notes. Thank you so much, you two, for being here, for sharing your story, your passion, your knowledge, for being part of the summit. So Dr. Cory and Jess are technically speaking in the clinician track, and we're going to go a deep dive into the power of breath and take this and then go deeper, basically. And so if you haven't already registered for the summit, again, below, you can join the summit in either a VIP or a free pass as well. We would love to have you join us there. Oh, you two, thank you for all you do, for your hearts, for your love, for your passion. It was an absolute pleasure, and we will speak with you very soon.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thanks, Natasha.
Bye.
That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.